Our top story this hour, activists and relatives protested outside the headquarters of the Hong Kong government flying service, accusing the government of lying over the circumstances surrounding the capture of 12 Hong Kong activists. The 12 Hong Kong activists were arrested by Chinese authorities over 6 weeks ago as they were attempting to flee by boat to Taiwan. They are accused of crimes tied to anti-government protest in Hong Kong last year. The family said that they had obtained the flight path of a Hong Kong government plane showing it was surveying the boat the 12 were in. They are being held in the Chinese city of Shenzhen after mainland authorities intercepted their boat and accused them of illegal border crossing. They have been termed by China as separatists.
因為根據呢一個消息人士向我哋呢係去提供呢一個飛行服務隊內部嘅呢一個飛行程序 flying program 呢，裏邊係清楚記錄呢一個定翼機嘅行動代號呢係有一個 POPS， 即係 Police Operation， 中文就係警方嘅行動。咁就反映呢，其實當呢一個嘅定翼機喺凌晨嘅4點大概4點10分，去到朝早8點45分呢，係去進行呢一個執行任務嘅時候呢，好明顯呢一個係有警方驅使嘅。咁呢一個呢，亦都係導致到呢警方表示自己對自己整個嘅過程唔知情呢。
我要求係即刻釋放我哋嘅兒子兒女12港人，唔可以再俾佢再係咁樣喺度送中，唔可以中港合作。如果警方係話冇角色，港府係話冇角色嘅，其實佢個角色係有嘅，不過佢係冇話俾我哋聽，就當係冇角色。
The families claim that the detainees have been denied access to independent lawyers. The Hong Kong government has said it cannot interfere on the detainees' behalf and that they must face legal proceedings in China before they can come back home. And for more on this, now we're being joined by Richard Kimber from Hong Kong. Richard, thank you so much for joining us. Could you begin by telling us a little about these protests and what the families of those detained are demanding?
Yes, this protest really comes as a result of continued frustration on the part of families of those 12 that they don't feel they've had any support from the Hong Kong government over this issue since the arrests were made more than 6 weeks ago. It's bred an increasing suspicion that the Hong Kong government may not be telling the full truth with regards to the operation that led to the arrests of these 12, and that's meant that there's more and more suspicion on the part of those 12 people's family members that in fact the Hong Kong authorities may have actually known much more than they're letting on about the plans of these 12 to escape, and were indeed monitoring them as they made their escape and working with the Chinese authorities to make the arrest. And the reason that's significant is because the situation that those 12 people are in now is that they're detained in China and have not been allowed back to Hong Kong, and there's no real information about how long they may be detained. So the frustration on the part of the families is, if the Hong Kong government and police were somehow working with the Chinese authorities, why was it necessary for this to happen in the way that it did? Why could these people have not been arrested in Hong Kong by Hong Kong authorities and therefore be detained in Hong Kong, and everything would be much more straightforward for the families to deal with? The government, though, very clear, saying that the Hong Kong police and government have nothing to do with this case.
All right, Richard. Also, it's been over 6 weeks since they were arrested by Chinese authorities. What can we expect in this case going forward now?
Well, yes, they've been detained now for 6 weeks, and it's been very difficult for the families here and supporters of those families to get information because they have not been given access to independent lawyers. The 12 people have had lawyers appointed on their behalf. They've been allowed to choose legal representatives from a list that's been given to them by the Chinese authorities, but no independent legal help has been able to access those 12, and that's why the flow of information has been very slow. There's been pressure on the government here to try and step in and provide support to those 12 people. But so far the government has said that there is nothing they can do because legally this is now a mainland Chinese issue, and the Hong Kong government cannot intervene until all due legal process has taken place in China. What's not clear is how long that might take and exactly the level of the charges that may be filed against those 12 people. Currently all we know is that they have been charged with illegally crossing the border, but we're not clear yet whether or not there might be additional charges because of some other element of the process by which they crossed the border that they could also be charged on.
Yes, I was actually going to come to that next. The Hong Kong government has time and again been urged to intervene in this matter. What can you tell us about that? Why do you think that they are refusing to speak on behalf of the detainees?
Well, Chief Executive Carrie Lam has made it clear that for as long as Hong Kong is separated from China in this regard with regards to arrests, then there's nothing that Hong Kong can do. Hong Kong does not have the authority to impose itself upon Chinese police activity, and if the people have been arrested in China, then they should serve their sentence or serve their trial or serve whatever arrest is given to them in China. And only when that has happened will the Hong Kong authorities have the opportunity then to ask for those 12 people to be brought back to Hong Kong, because of course, as the police here say, those 12 people still face charges here in Hong Kong for crimes they're alleged to have committed during protests. So really just a waiting game. Legally, Carrie Lam here, the Chief Executive, says there is nothing Hong Kong can do. That's of course upsetting for the families, because they're worried that they may never see these 12 people again, and they really don't know when that might be possible. So they're calling on the government to find other ways, other means to try and negotiate with Chinese authorities to try and resolve this issue without it being necessary for things to continue in the way that they are.
All right. Richard, thank you so much for joining us with all those inputs. We will definitely be closely tracking this. Thank you.